Hello and welcome to the D
and A of Home Interiors, the podcast which is all about empowering you to make confident interior and furnishing decisions for your home. I'm Audrey, founder of Whelan Interior Design.
And I'm Deirdre, founder of youfurnish.com, such 100 plus furniture retailers on one website. The DNA of Home Interiors is proudly sponsored by checkatrade.com. If you need help with your next home improvement project, you can search from over 39,000 recommended, vetted and monitored trades on checkatrade.com.
So today on the podcast, we are going to be talking about colour. We've got a very inspiring guest. She is the Creative Director of Dulux, Marianne Shillingford. So welcome to the podcast, Marianne.
Oh, hello. It's lovely to be here.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us. So, Marianne, we would love to hear, what's taken you to where you are today? Can you give us some background and some insight into where you've built up all this colour knowledge?
It's lovely. You said this podcast is going to be about sort of 45 minutes, and that we would only scratch the surface. But suffice to say, my journey to get to being the Creative Director of Dulux has always been a very colourful one, but not a straightforward one. So I started my working life painting fairgrounds and narrowboats, actually, of all things, and then went on a fantastic course in somebody's house and realised that actually all of these incredible skills that I had, people paid a lot more for it inside. And I thought, I'm going to start working inside. It's a lot warmer. And so took these skills, went back to college after having sort of learnt traditional skills of sign writing and gilding and all of that beautiful sort of mural work, but on a different kind of, different kind of scale and a different kind of level. I went back to college and learnt how to do stuff on interior walls. And then started my own business, a little decorating business, doing sort of specialist stuff, mural stuff, and specialist finishes. And we started using a Dulux product that had been designed for something slightly different, but we started to use it in such a way that made us. It meant that we didn't use oil-based materials anymore, which was really good for our health. Anyway, Dulux saw me doing this, and I got involved with them and did a kind of like a UK tour showing decorators how to use this amazing product. It was called an acrylic scumble glaze. It was just revolutionary. And that's how I sort of got into Dulux, and then have worked alongside Dulux for many years, working on different projects, did a bit of TV, so I've always been Dulux has always been, at the heart of my business because I used Dulux products, and circuitously it came round to started working on a design service, helping set up a design service for them, and then I don't know what happened. I think I went to sleep for a long time, and somebody asked me if being a creative director might be a great thing, and I jumped at the chance. So it's an incredibly circuitous route, but one that has always been rooted in colour, rooted in the practical application of colour, and this idea that colour is transformational, it's theatrical, and it's fun to do, fun to apply, and it changes everything.
That's so interesting, Marianne. I love unusual journeys, although there's not an unusual journey because everyone's journey is unique. But the fact that you started outdoors, you must bring a completely different perspective to what you can do indoors, because often we become rooted in what we know. And if you start indoors, you never think about how you can incorporate things from the outside. Like, do you find that some of those things that you were doing outdoors, you've actually brought into indoors colour in a very maybe unconventional way or unthought of?
I definitely think it's the thing that we did outdoors and that I did on narrowboats and especially in fairgrounds was this idea, this lovely sense of the theatre of colour, the theatre of decorating. That was the thing that was just the sort of and making decorating fun and enjoyable and amazing to look at. So if you go on a fairground, you cannot but have a good time. And there was something about that, bringing that element of theatre and fun into people's homes. It's actually what I do in my own home. And I think people take decorating sort of far too seriously sometimes, because it should be fun. It should be a reflection of yourself. It should create environments in which we can be ourselves, different versions of ourselves. And maybe that's what I brought in from the outside, this sort of less reverential look at decorating and interior design, and something that's just a much more fun and entertaining.
Yeah, because I guess, people can be so intimidated by colour, as we both know, Marianne. And I suppose, the idea of painting fairgrounds and narrowboats and, it's definitely springs to mind sort of being brave with colour, whereas often indoors, maybe people just feel, I need to go neutral, I need to keep it white, I'm afraid to go bolder. So I'd love to know what you would say to our listeners about, ways to make decisions on colour, and any kind of methods and tools maybe that you use or that you have advised people to use when making decisions to do with colour.
Well, I think that using colour in your home is a slightly different. It's very unique, isn't it? I mean, you open up your wardrobe and you'll have a series of clothes, some that you'll be wearing during the day, in your work day, and some that you will be wearing out in public. But the clothes that you wear when you're going out on a date or for a party or for yourself, when you suddenly become yourself, those are the clothes, those are the colours, and the things that you've bought on holiday, the things that you've bought to put in your home, a beautiful cushion, a nice piece of art, a beautiful vase, those colours interest me. Those are the colours that actually are your heart and soul. And I think that if you start with something that makes you happy, and something that is a real expression of you, then you start decorating for yourself, your family, your home, rather than decorating to please Instagram or the rest of the world. And I think that's something that, while we've been in lockdown, we've been living in our four walls that have had to work harder for us than they have ever done before. And we've started to realise that, firstly, oh my goodness, this place needs decorating. And secondly, my home needs to do different things. It doesn't need to just look good. It needs to do something different. And so we can use colour to create a zone for working and concentrating, a bedroom in which we can sleep better, a place where we can come together and eat as a family. We can use colour to stimulate different activities in the home. And it all starts with the heart, with the things you love, the things that make you happy. And so I would suggest to all of your listeners, rifle through your wardrobe, find your party dress, get your favourite makeup out, get your favourite things that you've bought on holiday as a family or as a couple, and look at those and give and start that. Give that as a launching pad for everything else. And if you're working with a designer, oh my goodness, that helps a designer no end, because it starts from the soul. It starts from a different point of rather than seeing what's out there and seeing what's defined as tasteful.
You used a really interesting word there, Marianne, stimulate. So to stimulate better sleep or to define your dining area. So is there, whilst you've mentioned that, people should indeed follow their heart and bring in those colours that they love most. And I particularly love the wardrobe example because I think it's a real true indicator of what colours that you like. Is there particular colours that have, a more calming effect versus a more energising effect for the home office, that we should sort of think of those type of colours as well as how we incorporate the colours that we like that are in our wardrobe?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you're wanting to, it depends what kind of working environment you are in, but most people want to have it's a bit like getting up in the morning and having a glass of fresh orange juice. You want that kind of initial boost of energy, but for the rest of the day you want to concentrate. So you want a bit of a lift, like a strong coffee, but for the rest of the day you probably want to clear your head, concentrate, work, but not be too overstimulated. So I would suggest in somewhere like a home office that you have a boost of colour. And this could be simply the colour of the desktop. It could be a golden yellow or an orange or something to give you a pop, but not to overwhelm. I mean, it could be just accessories on a desk. And then when you add grey to any colour, and I don't mean grey in its pure form, but just grey to another colour, you grey and mute a colour down. You turn down its visual impact. And so it demands less attention. And the colours that also allow us to concentrate and just sort of channel our energies on work rather than the walls would be blues and greens. It would reconnect us with the outside. It clears the mental palette. And so you could use those colours in a home office to help you think, to help you feel less hemmed in, and then use those kind of like vitamin C colours, those kind of, double espresso colours, just as little pops.
I'm a big fan of yellow Mariannes. So I love my little, I've got yellow velvet cushions and I'm looking at them here as we speak, and they're on a grey sofa. So I'm like, is it tuning them down a little bit? But I don't know, that little burst of colour, it is energising actually. And it's funny, when you say it, I can see it, but it's something that I don't necessarily think about beforehand.
It is. I love that. That's what I love about colour is I think we're quite scared of it. And we use it in little sort of, it's like the seasoning in food. If you over season something, it tastes disgusting, but if you just add seasoning, if you don't add seasoning, it's all grey, isn't it? But the seasoning, your yellow cushions on your sofa are a Friday night curry. They are the most delicious thing ever that you look forward to, but they don't have a curry every day. So if you like curry, of course. But it's important not to... You can always paint out lots of colour, but you can easily be overwhelmed by it and easily be frightened by it. So, painting a big wall, painting your whole office yellow will get you going, working at 100 miles an hour, and then you'll burn out and you'll hate it. And you won't know why you don't like going in there anymore. And so it's best to sort of just season. Use colour as seasoning where you don't want to be overwhelmed by it.
I think, it's such a good point, Marianne, isn't it? To not just limit our colour decisions on what is going on the wall, but to try and incorporate within that decision what else is going in, and even those little pops of colour, finishing touches, accessories, and how that can actually influence then in a really positive way and make easier the decision for your wall colour, if you can see that wider context, I suppose, of how you can bring in that contrast and those, seasoning aspects. I quite like that analogy.
Yeah, any analogy with food, and I'm happy. I mean, one of the things about when we're naming colours, the colours that are named after coffee and food and biscuits are always the ones that sell best. The comfort foods, bananas, custard, anything like that sells really well. And we usually name those colours just before lunch when we're a bit hungry. So colour, and I think as designers as well, you probably do this instinctively, is when you see a colour or you see something, you mentally touch it. You imagine how that colour must feel. The experience that you have of the colour in a space isn't just a visual experience. It's an experience that takes us to something. I mean, we were naming colours the other day, and we were trying to think of beautiful, soft materials, but also things that tasted good. So one of the colours that we came up with is a colour called velvet truffle. Oh yeah. I can close your eyes, and then it was a rum truffle, and you get that sort of exotic. You can see it, can't you? You can see it, but you can taste it. And when you see those colours on the walls, it gives you something else. And I think designers do it instinctively. You use colour like flavours and textures within a space, and I think that's magical. I don't think we describe that enough, maybe, or appreciate how powerful that is in a space.
Yeah, it's funny. I was actually dying to ask you, Marianne, about the names, because it's a question I get asked so much. Like, who actually comes up with these names and how do they come up with them? And, what I've found is, because, of course, the Dulux colours have all these names, as do many other paint brands have names, and then some don't have names. And even within the Dulux, massive spectrum of colours, obviously, people like me over the years have also used the trade, like books of colour, which don't have names, they just have numbers. But I've always felt that when I'm dealing with design clients, I really like to use the colour range with the names, because I feel like when you put the name in conversation, then it does add this other dimension to it, doesn't it? And the fact that you can remember what your colour is called. But I never thought about the what you said about the food colours being maybe the best sellers, the colours with the food names.
Yeah, chocolate, biscuits, tea and coffee, and wet weather apparently as well. That's another one is wet weather. We love wet weather colours in this country.
You can't beat the weather.
No. Well, the naming process is so. I'm gonna bust a few myths here, or sort of tell you, explain some of that. So all of those colours you have in your great big designer fan book with the notations are it's called a perceptual colour system. And what that is in those numbers and letters we capture the way the eye sees colour, and the eye sees colour in 3 dimensions, tridimensionally. So the first dimension is hue, what colour it is, and so that's the first set of numbers and letters that gives you what colour it is. The second number just before the slash will be how much light it reflects. That's its LRV value, and then the third number is the chroma, is how intense that colour is. So we're looking at colour, light reflectance value, and intensity of colour. And these numbers and letters capture, because this is exactly what we see when we see colour. This is what the eye is capturing. And those numbers and letters exactly capture what's going on in that colour. So if you read me one of the numbers off your colour chart, I will be able to tell you what that colour is. I'll be able to tell you how light or dark it is and how much grey it's got in it. Now the names, a lot of those numbered colours have names. And the names was something we started doing back in the 1930s. And we suddenly realised that names connect you to a colour on an emotional level. They also help us visualise what that colour will look like, but it also helps you visualise or feel what that colour might make a room feel like. So it's a kind of, it's how it looks and how it feels. And that was a huge revelation to realise that you name something and you immediately connect with it on another level. And over the years, we have often had a name that for a beautiful colour, but the name goes out of fashion or means less as time goes on because we've been around for 90 years now, and we'll change the name and suddenly the fortunes of that colour come back. Because the name is beautiful, the colour was always beautiful, but it was the name that helped it come back into the limelight. Some colours, most colours of the successful colours have 2 words in their name. One word that takes you to the way the colour looks, so that could be simply blue. And then one word that takes you to the way it feels or what it sort of represents. So something like a colour like Sapphire Salute. Sapphire takes you to the colour, so it gives you that beautiful, intense blue, that kind of clarity of blue, and Salute gives you a regal, kind of quite refined, quite grown-up feeling. So it's quite an elegant colour. So it's Sapphire Salute, perfect example of a word that takes you to the colour, and then a word that takes you to how it's going to feel and how it's going to look on the walls. And then I hope you're not bored, because I love this because I've never really explained it in full.
I'm a big nerd. I'm loving it.
Keep going, but I'll tell you what I'm doing as you're talking. I'm going through every Dulux colour I have in my house, and I'm thinking through this. So yeah, it's all making perfect sense so far.
It's very interesting because it will actually say something about you as well, and what you love and what you like. And then there's this third category of colour names, and these might be just simple one-word names like mascara, or I don't know, it could be bobby pin, that's 2 words, but it might be something that's just one word that captures something. And they are the names generally from our trend palettes. So these would be global trend palettes where there might be a very small range of colours that capture a kind of mood of the moment. And then we might just use one word, might just capture that. And it's quite cool as well. Sometimes, just one word is just cool. And also if it's slightly inscrutable, it suddenly has this kind of cachet to it. I don't know why, but it just does. I mean, Farrow and Ball do it, and you go, oh, clunch, and you don't know what the hell that means, but actually it's kind of cool. And so generally the trend-led palettes would do that. But I think it's this kind of multi-sensory approach to what colour is and what it does and how we describe it and how we use it and how it defines our spaces. I think that the name is a really important part of that. And as you say, Audrey, as well, when you're talking to your clients, I mean, yeah, if you say, oh, we're going to have banana dream in the kitchen, I mean, that's quite funny. But if you said, no, we're going to have raven's flight in the kitchen, in the dining room, we're going to have sumptuous plum, and in the city, we're going to have, bitter chocolate, and all of those. It's really important. It's really important selling. It's important for you to be able to describe something that looks delicious, and is going to be luxurious on somebody's walls.
Well, it certainly sounds delicious as well with some of those great words. There is words every once in a while that you just think it's a brilliant. It's the sound of it, isn't it? Like the flight. It's so emotive, and it's funny because I was doing the same thing as you, Audrey. And when you were talking about the names and how you came up with them, I first painted my bedroom when I was about 12 years of age. One summer, I told my parents I wanted to paint it, and we put morning sunshine on it. So my love of yellow was coming from an early age, and that name is etched in my memory. And I can't remember things that happened last week, but I can remember the name of that.
It's lovely. It is lovely, isn't it? Yeah. It's a lovely thing. Yeah, it's a lovely thing. Much overlooked, but hugely valued in our business. Hugely valued. Oh, and we have this. This is the funny thing. Audrey, you asked who names these colours. Well, we always send a shout out to the business. So we send an email out saying, we're about to name a colour range. Who wants to take part? And this will literally go out to everybody from finance to scientists to the colour team beyond. And so anybody's welcome to these sessions. And when you have a different group of people, you get a different kind of view of things. And you'll sit down and you'll show everybody the colour. We'll look at it in different lights. We'll each have a sample in front of us. And we're asked to kind of literally throw names and words into the hat, and they're all recorded and they're put together. And so it's a really lovely experience. And there's one girl in the colour team, she'll hate it if she listens to this podcast, but she's called Nicola, and she's just the best. She is absolutely the best, and she just comes up with the best names, and they're always funny. And then, but within those funny names, she'll always find this absolute nugget of gold. And some people have a real knack for it. But we have, one day come in and do a colour naming session with us. It's
sounds
it's
like
great
it's really fun.
It's really great fun.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah.
So the other thing you mentioned there is that when you do these colour sessions, that you look at them in different lights. And this is really interesting because when you go into a shop and you have the paint colours, they often have the different lights. So the yellow light to the white light and the difference. What advice would you give to people when you're thinking about, whether your room is north facing or south facing and how much natural light it gets in, or if you're going to have, specific task focused light versus warmer light? How does that impact your colour choices?
Well, colour is just visible wavelengths of light. It's light bouncing off a surface, and the wavelengths that come back into your eye inform your brain what colour you are looking at. So really, colour is just light, and light is everything. If you get the lighting wrong with the colour, the most beautiful colour in a shop can look revolting on your walls. So as much as humanly possible, we try and make it easy on the colour units to show people colour in different lights, but there is no substitute for buying a tester and painting out on a piece of paper and hanging it around the different walls of your house, so you can see what it's going to look like in your home. Because nobody has a perfectly south-facing or a perfectly north-facing room. It's very, very rare. But the rule of thumb: if you have a predominantly south-facing room with lots and lots of sunlight in it, you can generally use any colour. You get away with it as long as you're using that room during the day. South-facing rooms can take cooler colours because they've got more light, so they do tend to. Cooler colours don't look cold. If you have a north-facing room and you're using that room predominantly during the day, you might find that those cooler colours do just look cold because the light isn't going to be warm enough. And so you would compensate for that with softer, warmer neutrals and warmer colours, and that would look great in a north-facing room. But then, generally, at 3 o'clock tonight, we will all be plunged into darkness. It won't matter whether you're north, south, east or west, because it's all going to be about artificial light. And if you don't get the artificial light right, again, it's going to look revolting, whatever colour you choose. I mean, the revolution in lighting that we've had over the last few years, warm LED is, it's fabulous for colour. It's allowed us to use greys, and grey comes alive with LED lighting, the cooler colours in the spectrum. All of this beautiful love of emerald greens and dark blues has all been to do with the quality of light that we've got in our homes now. I mean, it used to be incandescent bulbs, the yellow glow on anything. Everything used to have this yellow wash on it. But now it's no longer the case. And so we can have this, it's wonderful because we can have these, the whole spectrum is open to us. So a tester, get a tester. It's the easiest thing ever. And then you can see it through lots of different lighting that you have all the way through the day, all the way through the seasons. And I mean, you're the designer, Audrey, here. I mean, just in the interior lighting right. It's so important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, for some people, their challenge is choosing colour when the lighting is in place and maybe they don't have as much flexibility to change that. And then for other people, they've got the absolute kind of open book of being able to determine what the lighting is going to be simultaneously to the colour. So that's it's quite nice to be in that position. But yeah, either way, I mean, I'm just like you, Marianne, always about the testers. And then you can also look at that colour in conjunction with the flooring you have, or different items of furnishing that you're going to put in the room, or samples of other things that you're intending to buy as well. So yeah, really, really useful.
Quick shout out for our sponsor, checkatrade.com. Search recommended tradespeople online with checkatrade.com.
What's kind of springing to mind now to me, Marianne, is like I keep seeing examples on the Dulux Instagram feed of like colour blocking, I suppose we'd call it. So this, in my way of explaining it would be, rather than painting a whole room in one colour, or even the kind of older idea, let's say, of a feature wall where you do one colour. You do a colour just on one wall and then perhaps a lighter colour on the rest. But this is like great ways of actually dividing up a room or a wall or an area with colour. And so, I mean, I'd love to hear a bit more on this from you, and sort of what's the background to this, or what's inspired Dulux to be showing more examples of this.
It's something that people fell in love with the feature wall. And the feature wall was the kind of, it's the start of everything. And actually in our homes are getting smaller. Our homes are having to work, we said earlier, they're having to work harder and do different things. And so to use a block of colour or a shape of colour to define a space is so much more individual and creative, it's so much more interesting than just one big block of colour on one wall. And so what we at Dulux want to do and aim to do is to inspire, but also show people how to do it. So one of the things that we do, and you sort of see on Instagram, we do lots of Instagram lives, is we'll show somebody how something might look. So we'll take a big square or a big oblong over somebody's workspace to sort of like define that workspace, and then we'll show people how to do it. So we'll show people how it looks and then show people how to do it. It's always been something that, decorating and design never stays still. So we're constantly thinking of new ideas to inspire people, new ideas to kind of just push the boundaries or push something, like taking colour up onto the ceiling. I mean, we have a big academy, and we're constantly decorating and experimenting, and we're constantly playing with stuff, and we see something in design. So we might go to a big design show, we'll see colour on a ceiling, and we'll go, how would that look in our homes? Let's test it out. So we would come back to the academy and we would start to paint the ceilings. We'd do our own homes. We'd try stripes and blocks and taking colour around the corners, spit colours on the wall, effects, sort of simple effects with masking tape, geometric shapes. We'd be doing all of that ourselves, and then we'd put it out on Instagram and we'd see what other people are thinking of it. So it's a development of the feature wall. We are becoming much more creative. And I think, again, in lockdown, we've had time to become more creative. And so there's a lovely appetite for doing something really unique with your homes. And from my point of view, this whole taking a block of colour up from the wall and onto the ceiling over a dining table, oh my my goodness, it just looks gorgeous. It extends the dining room. It stops it being blocked in this sort of floor shape, over a rug, and takes that sort of idea of a design rug up onto the ceiling. I mean, it's the simplest thing to do, and yet one of the most stunning, dramatic and dynamic changes you can do to a space. And literally, all it takes is probably a litre of paint and some masking tape and a ladder, of course. But
and I guess that this is then a great way to maybe bring in some of those punchier colours that we talked about earlier on. So say like the mustard yellow that you love, Deirdre, the idea of just bringing in, either something like you've described that maybe does creep onto the ceiling, or, so some great examples I've seen is, say, where you have perhaps on a chimney breast, a big rectangle of a punchy colour painted, and then perhaps a few frames put on that big rectangle of colour. So that could be quite a punchy colour that's painted on just that rectangular patch on the wall, but then maybe the frames are black with sort of black and white prints inside, and you get this nice sort of graphical effect. Or other examples I've loved are where maybe just one wall has a different colour, just up so sort of to that traditional maybe dado rail height, or up to the picture rail height. So some of the things Deirdre and I talked about way back in our period properties podcast episode, but the idea of just actually doing that with paint, and then being able to just create this, it's really zoning, isn't it, being able to help zone off areas then, and through a really kind of simple use of colour.
I mean, you just described the most beautiful thing. I love to recreate. You've just talked through this lovely big block of colour on a chimney breast, and then having black framed monochrome prints on top of it. And I can see it, and I'm thinking, oh, that's fantastic. And Instagram's allowed us to bring this alive, and allowed us to develop on other people's ideas, and to make them our own, and to recreate them at home. And that's so exciting. I mean, it's such, it turns decorating from being a chore that you do because you have to refresh your house because it's all looking dirty, to something that is an expression of who you are and how you live in your home.
Exactly. And I just love the geometric shapes that people are making with paint now. I think it's so unique. But also the other thing, I think people are sometimes a little bit afraid of colour or trying out some shapes. And at the end of the day, it's paint. If you don't like it, paint over it. It's probably a lot less troublesome than having to replace the rug, or having to replace a sofa that's a big block of colour. But we should remember that actually paint is so accessible, and we can give it a go. And if we don't like it, we can redo it.
Absolutely, and also the developments in the different types of paints. I mean, we do a paint called Simply Refresh, and literally it's a one coat paint. It's the most gorgeous velvety paint, and it just goes on in one coat. So if you don't like something, you can paint over it and start again, and it literally will do it in one coat. And so paint has come on leaps and bounds, not just the availability of different colours, but actually the quality of the paint and what those paints are designed to do. So different functions for different areas of the house, and different functions for, say, if you want a weekend project and you don't want to do 2 or 3 coats, then something like Simply Refresh is just perfect for that kind of thing.
That leads me in nicely, Marianne, to the next thing I wanted to ask you, which was about paint finishes. Because I feel like lately, I went on the Dulux Decorator website a while back, and I felt like there was about 5 new finishes I didn't even know about. Like scuff, is it scuff shield, or,
Scuff shield, yeah.
And I do find that, often in the conversations with clients, we would talk about colour decisions, obviously in terms of, what the colour looks like, and, the names, as we said, coming in very useful. But then for a lot of people, I think the finish is something that they're not almost even aware of. And, they might go off to buy the paint and then be stumped with this question, what finish are you looking for? And they say, oh gosh, I don't know. Well, what surface are you painting? And even in this day and age, that doesn't even narrow it down that much, does it? Because if it's woodwork, you've still got loads of choices. If it's walls, you've still got loads of choices. So just a little bit on that would be great to hear.
Well, the sort of when we would describe, I'm looking at my walls here, and they're looking pretty good, I have to say. And when people love a matte a sort of velvety matte finish that gives us a premium. I mean, if you're wanting colour to sing, you need to have a surface that's not going to reflect too much light, because as soon as the surface starts to reflect light, if it's slightly shiny, it will show up all sorts of imperfections. If you have a matte surface that absorbs light, suddenly all of those imperfections melt away. And dark colours and deep, rich colours on a velvety matte finish look amazing. Now, up until a few years ago, it was quite difficult to get a velvety matte, super matte finish on a wall that wasn't really, really delicate. And so you touched it and it suddenly became shiny around the light switch. It was hard to wipe off. As soon as you wiped anything off, it would get shiny. So, but we developed paints, super flat matte finishes that are incredibly tough. So 20 to 50 times tougher than a standard emulsion, but they are wipeable and super flat. So dead flat. Super flat mattes are amazing. We have this new paint in our retail, so DIY range called Easy Care. And Easy Care, again, it has this gorgeous velvety matte finish, but literally you could throw fried eggs at it and the stains bead off the surface, so they just wipe off. But it doesn't affect the finish at all. And so there are lots of finishes out there. I mean, I would say if you're looking to make the most of your colour and to have something really practical and durable, if you're doing it yourself, go for Easy Care. We are soon bringing out, you will love this, Audrey, we are relaunching our heritage range, and that's coming out next year. And we've got a completely new formulation, and so it's tough as old boots, but it's got this beautiful velvety touch. So when you're looking at something velvety or something, you have to touch it. And it's the same with the walls. So this is paint that when you look at it, you just have to touch it. And so if you have to touch it, you've got to be able to wipe it as well. So it just looks good, it feels good, and it's a super premium finish. So that's kind of like almost taking on another level. But with all of our paints, we are about the practical. So really well-designed things are not only beautiful, they have to be practical. And so all of the finishes that we create that are that flat matte finish, they have to last. And this has a knock-on effect on the environment as well. If you create a paint that doesn't last, you're going to decorate more and you're going to be using more resources to do that. If you've got a beautiful velvety matte paint that will last on the walls looking great for 10 years, then that has a positive knock-on effect for the environment. So we try and develop beautiful, practical things. And I know, you're talking to the creative director of Dulux. I'm not going to say anything other than this is a great thing to do. But I do think that's the right thing to do for now.
I'm a big fan, Marianne, of Practicality. I've seen enough things growing up which look great. And I was in a hotel recently that's been newly designed, and actually the flusher for the toilet, it's just behind the seat, but it means that you can't put up the seat. So as you're sitting there, the seat keeps coming down on top of you. I was talking to the owner of the hotel who was like, I can't wait until I can redo this all, because it's all been just done too much for design and not actually for proper usage. So I think that's really important, because our lives are busy, there will be scuffs, and I'm in a 2-bed apartment with just my other half, but you think there's no kids and little things like that, but every once in a while a bike wheel does hit against the wall and you've got that mark. So being able to easily remove those is key. So I've asked, I've already told you guys that obviously my big colour is yellow. What's your favourite colour, Marianne? Do you have one? You have to have one, surely.
I do have one. My favourite colour is orange, actually. It's
very energetic.
We used to... Yeah, we used to have a bedroom that was painted in this gorgeous gingery orange. It's absolutely gorgeous, and it was just enough energy to get you up in the morning. And yet at night, when you saw it under artificial light, it was quite sultry. It was a lovely, absolutely lovely colour. And I love to wear orange tights. If somebody gave me an orange fluffy coat, I would be thrilled. This is a hint, by the way. I hope he's going to listen to this. So anything. I love to wear orange. As you've got your gorgeous yellow cushions on your sofa, all of the cushions on my sofa are orange. It makes me happy. I would find it possibly on the walls of my living room too much, but on, my legs in tights, that makes me really happy. And yeah, it's for years and years and years, just makes me happy. Yeah.
Audrey, what's yours?
Yeah, I was wondering if you were going to ask me this. So yeah, my kids always quote, that I think colour has just filtered through, like, as a family conversation. They tell everybody my favourite colour is purple. But I was just analysing this as we were speaking and thinking, well, interior wise, would it be? I think my favourite colour is really more of a magenta pink. And actually, I've got a magenta pink coat, which I've been wearing this winter. I've had it in my wardrobe for years, but I decided I'd take it out and start wearing it, just feeling that, this was the kind of winter where I just needed a bit more colour. And, the amount of compliments and the amount of conversations that have been started because of this magenta coat is just, really lovely at the moment. So yeah, and that is a colour that I have used in my home, not on sort of a solid wall, but I do have some amazing Marimekko wallpaper in our bedroom, which it's a pattern, but it has magenta in it. And I've got sort of other bits of magenta sprinkled through the house and cushions, lampshades, things like that.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Do you know what? Go on.
I was going to guess Audrey's was purple, because even your glasses are purple, aren't they?
Oh, yes,
so
yes.
That was my key hint. But sorry, Marianne, what were you going to say?
I was going to say a lot of the sort of work that we're doing at the moment is about how colours make us feel and what they mean. And there's the lovely idea. I love this idea that you like yellow. It's optimistic. It's full of sunshine. It's quite childlike as well. So this is sort of, you obviously have the inner child is very much alive and kicking. And when you said, Audrey, like purple, so the contrast in colour to this sort of this vibrant enthusiasm, this almost kind of like spring, hoppy, exciting, is purple. And there's this gorgeous balance between the two. So although they're opposite, they complement each other perfectly. And for Audrey, this purple colour always represents, but it's sort of regal, of course. It's incredibly modern colour, but it's also associated with dreams, a real dreamer, but creative problem solving. So my goodness, you couldn't sum up a designer more perfectly than having somebody who's a creative problem solver. They're a dreamer and regal, modern. I mean, it's wonderful. You two are obviously perfectly suited, in your personalities. Perfectly balanced.
Opposites attract. That's great that our colours are reflecting it as well. This has been fantastic, Marianne. My last question for you is colour of the year. Can you tell us a little bit about this year and about the process as well of how you choose the colour of the year, because it's fantastic.
It is. It's an awesome process. It's Dulux is part of AkzoNobel, one of the biggest companies in the world to create colour, surface colour, and colour for walls is what Dulux do in AkzoNobel, with the sort of jewel in the crown of decorative paints. And every year we do this thing. We gather together experts from all over the world, and these are thought leaders, architects, designers, people who are saying something or doing something quite incredible within their country or their region. We invite them to our Global Aesthetic Centre in Amsterdam for a 3-day workshop. And in that workshop, we ask them what they think are the biggest influences, or the biggest things that are going to have the influence in the way we live in the future, what our homes are going to look like, what our workspaces are going to look like. It's an incredible 3-day workshop, and our colour teams do not take part. We observe. So we get these incredible people together in a room, and we just listen and observe, and we ask them questions, and we do the whole workshop, and we try to get to the bottom of what the kind of tapestry of the world looks like, and how. And after this workshop, it's only then when we sort of have identified these incredible themes and threads that we start to put colour to it. Now, in the last 5 years, before it was about sort of 5 or 6 years ago, we noticed that our experts were starting to talk about things beyond the stuff. And what I mean is beyond the stuff. I mean, up until that point, we would have talked about what was on a catwalk, new cars that had come out, new technology, new flooring, new materials. It was all about the stuff, the physical, tangible things that were affecting, that we were going to buy into, that were going to shape the way our homes looked and functioned. In the last 5 or 6 years, that conversation turned to more of a sort of human-centered condition, what we were worried about, what we thought was luxurious, and it was time, experience. We started to talk about much more human-centered things that concerned us and things that were affecting our lives, the rise of technology and digital communication. And we distilled from those big themes that was human-centered, colours, palettes and trend stories that were so much more authentic, so much more resonant with our customers. And in the last few years, we've just had such a hugely positive response to colours that are rooted in the human condition. And Brave Ground was extraordinary. I mean, Tranquil Dawn, this year that we're in, I can't believe it's 2020, has been one of our best-selling colours. Denim Drift, before that, in the last 5 years, was a global bestseller. Tranquil Dawn is set to be a global bestseller. So these colour of the years that have been rooted in who we are and what we want and need from our homes have been hugely successful. So Brave Ground this year, we identify this colour the year before. So by September last year, we'd worked out what Brave Ground was. We sort of, we'd booked the locations, we'd booked the photographers, we'd booked the filming. Everything was all sort of ready and set to bring it to life in March. So we don't launch Colour of the Year until September. So this September we launched Brave Ground, but in March we were all set to go, and then of course COVID happened. And we asked ourselves, is this colour still relevant for what's happening to us now? And the story of Brave Ground, all of the colours of the year connect one from another. So they don't just pop up out of anywhere. They're actually organic. They grow from one year to the next. And Brave Ground represented us returning to the earth and protecting our protector, Mother Earth, and coming back to the familiar in times of uncertainty, and understanding that we need to be brave to make some incredibly brave decisions for the challenging world that we leave as a legacy for the next generation. And so we had established this story of colour, of what we wanted and what we needed in our homes, this return to the Mother Earth. And when COVID happened, we asked ourselves, is this still relevant? And actually, in a sense, it's more relevant than it's ever been before. And so we decided to keep the colour name, not to change it at all, not to change the story at all. And it's proved when we launched it digitally, not rather than physically, and it's proved to be one of the most successful launches we've ever had. And I find it immensely a great privilege to be part of that experience of choosing a colour of the year. And it's a great marketing tool. Colour of the Year is a great marketing tool, but it's so much more than that. It represents something really important that's happening to us. And the proof of the pudding is if it sells and people like it and people use it, then it's got to be, we got it right.
Exactly.
Does that explain it? I know I go on, but
no, it's amazing. And I saw the launch and it was fantastic, even done virtually. It was so clever. But it sounds like one of those things that you'd love to be a fly on the wall when you're getting all of those expert views across those 3 days. I'm sure there's some fascinating things coming out of it.
Absolutely. We just finished the one for 2022. It was extraordinary. It really was, because we're in a state of flux. Who knows what's going to happen? And of course, the world, the mood of the moment is going to change once we have a vaccine. And so at the moment, if you established a colour of the year now, it might not be quite hopeful. Who knows? We might be
probably need yellow in there.
So well, exactly. I mean, we're
sunshine.
Yeah, and that was one of our criticisms. One of our kind of challenges is this beautiful, warm clay neutral? Is this optimistic enough for do we need optimism in this time of uncertainty? And actually, maybe we're not feeling that optimistic at the minute. And so we're reflecting the here and now, this kind of, this sort of this return to nature, there's this return to familiar clay neutrals, these warming colours that surround us in our homes. And yellow might be the next one, might be the next thing we need, but not at the moment. At the moment, we don't feel it, not yet.
Yeah.
We might need it,
it's true.
but we don't feel it. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's reflected, Marianne, as well. Audrey and I often talk about it. So cottage core is one of the big trends of 2020. And it's going back to, your cooking, your florals, your granny's curtains. And, it is that sort of retrenching to the safe place. So, no, that's been absolutely fabulous, Marianne. Thank you so much for sharing all of those insights. And in particular, I was really amazed with the names and the two and the insights into those, but also the colours. The numbering aspect of it and how you can tell how much light, that's really educational. And I think it's really interesting when you know a little bit of the science behind something that you often take for granted. So thank you so much for being our guest today.
Thanks, Marianne.
Oh, great pleasure. I really enjoyed it. Thank you. Thank you.
If you enjoyed our podcast, we would be delighted if you could rate, review and subscribe on your favourite podcast provider. This will help others who are seeking home and furnishing advice and inspiration discover the DNA of home interiors. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube and Twitter at the DNA of Home Interiors.
If you are looking for inspiration and help in designing your home interiors, take a look at Audrey Whelan's masterclasses on audreywhelan.com/events. And don't forget to check out youfurnish.com, a search and comparison website which helps connect people with amazing furniture from over 100 retailers. We designed it to solve the problem we and thousands like us faced furnishing our homes. And now we are really excited that everyone can search, discover, compare and shop for their home all in one place.
Thank you to our sponsor checkatrade.com for their support in bringing this episode to you. And most importantly, thank you all for listening today.
We hope you can join us next time.